you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am The Wiz, and I'm here today with...
Zero.
How you doing this week?
Little beat, unfortunately. The project I'm on, I am flying solo the entire week and I have no help. So it's not great.
Yeah, that sucks, dude. All right, Zero, so we're here to review the 1954 thriller Rear Window, starring James Stewart, Grace Kelly, Raymond Burr, and Wendell Corey, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Zero, I remember you saying that you have some familiarity with this movie. Tell me what it was.
It is the Simpsons episode where Bart breaks his leg when they get a pool. And they make a huge reference in that episode to James Stewart playing the main character. And I think one of the most funniest parts was just when Bart is going to Flanders' house trying to save Lisa. And the caricature of Jeff Jeffries, the main character, he's like, "Oh no, that sinister kid's coming to kill me!" And then he freaks out, and then he just tips over his wheelchair and falls over. And I was just like, "Oh my god!"
Man, that whole entire subplot is this movie. It's so funny. Let's get into it. Let's get into the review of Rear Window, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Before that, Zero, let's get into the plot. The story is about L.B. Jeffries, played by James Stewart, who, after breaking his leg, is stuck in his apartment, and all he can do is basically be a voyeur. Would that be the right thing? I want to say peeping Tom, but that's a little more perverted than I think that it really is. Would you agree with that?
Voyeur would definitely be the right term, because he's just kind of like trying to be nosy and just kind of looking at everything. And the reason it's so easy to kind of look around the neighborhood is set in the 1950s during a heat wave in Greenwich Village, Manhattan. So everyone's just got their windows open to try to basically deal with the heat wave.
But why that matters in this plot is because LB thinks that he has witnessed a possible murder, and he needs to find a way to prove it. And the film kind of plays with whether he actually did or not, or if he's just going crazy, which is a possibility with him being cooped up in his apartment all day.
The movie builds the suspense pretty well, because before things really get heated, you just sort of see his descent into boredom. He's just like, "I'm losing my mind here. Just give me an assignment. I don't care if you gotta wheel me. Just get me something to do." And his boss is like, just wait until your leg's recovered. You'll be fine. And I'm guessing she might be like a nurse or a physical therapist. She ends up coming in and kind of, telling him, just wait it out. You'll be fine. And of course, he's just kind of lamenting to her, "I'm losing my shit with boredom here." There are occasional things that kind of spice up his view. Like, one of his neighbors ends up being a ballerina who likes to kind of prance around in her underwear and stuff like that. So every once in a while, he's like, "Hey, yeah, that's a pretty good view."
Yeah.
It's kind of neat, because in the beginning, it just seems like a series of little vignettes that he sees out of his window, because he sees like a couple that likes to sleep out on their balcony, and then he sees this other apartment that is home to a musician who likes to play just beautiful music and everything. It's just like, okay, well, maybe he's going to try to find entertainment in some of the mundane, ordinary things that he's seeing in his neighborhood. And then, kind of like you mentioned, just things take a dark twist when somebody in his neighborhood ends up doing what looks like a murder of someone else in their household. LB is just swearing up and down. He's just like, "I saw it. I know what happened." And the movie just cleverly kind of makes you question it. It's just like, are you sure that's what you saw? Maybe you're letting your overactive imagination run away with it. In between the moments that LB sees something and you as the viewer are kind of viewing it through his eyes, and you have like a detective who will just say, "Dude, you're losing it. Just stop it. Quit bothering me." It just kind of brings the tension of, damn it, I think he saw something. And then of course this detective's like, "No, you didn't." Kind of puts the viewer in the shoes of LB, because you're just like, there's something going on. Why are you not checking on it?
There's one thing about this movie that I think needs to be pointed out really quick, is that the direction is masterful, and mainly because of how he tells the story. You would hear the plot of the story and be like, it's about a guy who watches other people? That's kind of boring. It's kind of stupid. But the way he directs it and the way that he times everything and the way that it's shot is so well done in this movie that it really must have taken a lot of time and effort to get it done perfectly. You mentioned the thing with the ballerina, the musician. How about the lady in the bottom apartment who is going through a clear depression and loneliness? And what's funny is in these vignettes, but the way that it's directed, it is clear what is going on, and it's fascinating to watch, even when you're seeing it through the eyes of LB. And I think that was a really good job that Hitchcock did.
The fact that you had these little vignettes going on while the main plot was going on was very interesting too, because the woman on the first floor, the nurse refers to her as Miss Lonely Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
She's got her own sort of like story going. The ballerina, she's got her own story going on with the various people that she ends up entertaining. Then you've got the top floor with musician and just him running some of the most wildest parties with just a ton of people there, just drinking through the night, and all while just playing music. And even some of his guests end up just kind of breaking out their own musical instruments, and they just kind of go on like a evening jam session, just kind of just playing music through the night.
That's hard to do. To make these characters, you hear no dialogue, you just have to watch them through their actions, but still make them fascinating to watch and make them entertaining to watch. And I think another thing we have to point out too is that the setting is actually really well done too. It's not like overly flashy to where it's obvious they're trying to make it interesting because you're staring at a building for 2 hours. But there's enough to the setting itself that it feels like a character in its own self. What I also think is another well done thing in this movie that I believe Hitchcock did a great job is the genre mixing. This is not a movie that is constantly ratcheting up the stress. It really isn't. There is romance, there is comedy, there is drama, there is all this stuff that's going on. And whether it's between LB and his girlfriend, or it's from what's going on in the apartment buildings, there's a healthy mix of genres that breaks everything up. And at no point was I watching this going, I wish I would get this over with. All of it's well done.
It made it very interesting, and it also is such a delicate balance that was well maintained as well too, because typically when a movie tries to do too much, sometimes it can just lose its way. And I think the balance that was found was something that just was a very, very pleasant surprise to see, because when I saw these vignettes going on, I was like, oh no, this is gonna suffer, because you're going to have a point where things are not focused, and because they're not focused, it's going to feel like just everything's going to be completely off track. So that was a concern that I had for a good while, but once I kind of saw that they had a stable grasp of just how each vignette was going to play out while also advancing the primary plot of the movie, I was like, okay, well that's fantastic. They managed to keep a really, really good balance. I think when you get to the end of the movie, it's also kind of nice too, because all the vignettes sort of find their own sort of conclusions.
We went through the direction and the storytelling, which I think is great in this movie. I guess we should get into the performances real quick. There's really only 4 performances that really need to be talked about, and I'll go with the first one right away, and I think you already know. James Stewart. I thought he was very good in this movie. I've seen a lot of James Stewart movies. I don't know how many you've seen, but I've become more and more enamored and charmed by him when I start seeing more of his movies, and I start to really understand why people loved him so much when he was popular. He's got this charm to him, but LB is also someone who is kind of surly and kind of not in the greatest mental state, but Stewart plays him well enough where you're still charmed by him and understand why people like him, even though he's pretty much a curmudgeon throughout this entire film.
Yeah, James Stewart, he's just fantastic. I haven't seen very many of his movies. The way how he sort of just kind of played the role of just a news photographer who just likes being active and out in the field and just kind of getting lost in his own work, being forced to kind of be stuck in his wheelchair while his broken leg heals up. He plays off the role so well as someone who's bored, irritated, and then suddenly just gets wrapped up into this murder plot.
I'm wondering what you think your favorite performance of the film is. I want to hear that. Is it James Stewart?
Yeah, it's definitely James Stewart, with Grace Kelly following right behind.
I'm the opposite. I like James Stewart, but I really think Grace Kelly was probably the best part of this movie. Mainly because you have this woman who, by all intents and purposes, is perfect, gorgeous, loving, caring, really loves this guy, even though you have plenty of reasons to see why maybe she would probably not want to, but you believe that she does. But you also believe that she'll get into the shenanigans she gets into with LB as the film goes on, and it's believable in that. With another actress, it could be really hard to make it believable and not think, oh, well, you're doing that because you're playing the girlfriend role. In this movie, I did not see that at all. I thought that she played that role incredibly well. Yeah, that was my favorite performance.
And it's kind of fun too, because in the beginning of the movie, you have LB basically just kind of gripe to his nurse, like, I'm supposed to get married to her, but, just, I don't want to go through with it. I think she deserves somebody better. He kind of just beats himself up that he's not a good match for Lisa. And it's just kind of funny when she kind of comes in for the first time. You can see he's actively just kind of pushing her away. I think one of the interesting examples was she had mentioned, why don't you do less risky photography? Just, hey, I could get you into a gallery event and, all you'll just do is just take pictures of models in pretty clothes. And he just came off as real standoffish. Did not like the idea of that. He was just like, I'm going stir crazy right now, and you're telling me to stick in one plate and just take photos? No, that's not for me. Lisa kind of pushes back later in the movie, and she's like, well, I want to be involved in your life. What will it take for me to be involved in your life? You can see LB is just straining to try to just break everything up with her, and goes, well, if you really are intent with like following me through my misadventures and everything, you're pretty much going to have to go completely minimalist. You're going to have to literally live out of your suitcase, and it's not something I would subject a pretty girl to. At this point, she just kind of flat out tells him, I don't care. I just purely want to be with you, misadventures or not. Just, I want to be there. This kind of leads up so well towards the end when Lisa gets involved into LB shenanigans.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what's important with Grace Kelly's performance in this is that when LB discusses Lisa at the beginning, you don't know what she looks like, you don't know who she is. And he describes her as, I think she says she's perfect, beautiful, charming, loving, and caring. And he basically says, I don't think I deserve that, or I don't deserve her, or she's just too good for me, I think is what he said. And right there, you have a hard image that an actress has to portray. And I think Grace Kelly portrays it incredibly well, because she's believable on all fronts in that. This girl would have to be an angel to deal with what she's dealing with LB, but yet she pulls it off and is charming to boot on that. That's why I think Grace Kelly is the best performance in this film, but I do like James Stewart in this. All right, Zero, we don't have any footnotes for this movie, so why don't we get into whether we recommend it. Zero, do you recommend this movie?
I do, mostly because of the fact that just, it's fantastic with what it does, and it seems like it does a lot, but it does so in a very controlled manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what makes the movie just fantastic, because, like I said, for me, when I saw just the combination of all these vignettes going on while the main plot was going on, I initially had concerns and trepidations on how it was going to manage everything, because it seemed like it was setting something up that was so very ambitious. Usually when a piece of media, be it movies, video games, or various forms of art, when they try to do too much, I always get concerned because it seems like it's just spreading itself way too thin. And yet with Rear Window, the vignettes are kind of like tapas around the main meal that, you can kind of go and kind of enjoy them like snacks, but at the same time, you're seeing the main plot unfold, the main plot being the main meal, so you're able to kind of take bites and bites of the main meal, but at the same time, the vignettes will also kind of occasionally play out, and you can kind of have proverbial snacks but when the vignettes play out and everything. So it's something that's so very rare to see, that you see a movie that does a lot of things, but at the same time, it doesn't kind of spread itself too thin, and it manages to ensure that all these vignettes do come to a nice conclusion.
All your points I agree with, and I highly recommend this movie. I think this is a directing masterclass. It really takes somebody like a Hitchcock or directors like him, and there's been very few like him, to pull something like this off. And also the differences in different types of genres. Like even the comedy works, even the romance works between LB and Lisa in this movie. Some movies, that would be something that would be like off to the side, like, if you're into that, fine, it's there, but like, this is the meat. Everything is just so well done in this that I think anybody can watch this movie and get something out of it and enjoy it. And that's incredibly hard to do. All right, so Zero, you recommend this?
Yes, definitely recommend this one.
And I also definitely recommend Rear Window. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. All right, Zero, so let's run down to the next episode. Saturday, I'll be reviewing The Birds, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Tuesday, I'll be reviewing the documentary Harlan County, USA. Thursday, Zero, what are we watching and reviewing?
It will be Atari Game Over documentary.
That's right. That's Atari Game Over. I gotta be honest, man. I tried to look for a bunch of tech documentaries and some with gaming. The only ones I can think were the one about Dota on Steam, which I watched already. Indie Game The Movie, which I think you've watched that too, correct?
I believe so. It's been years.
Yeah, same here. King of Kong is another one, but I know we've both watched that. This is really the only one that we haven't seen, and I'm kind of curious about it. All I know about this movie is it's centered around the dig of the ET cartridges, right?
Yeah, which was right at the height of the video game crash of the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
For anyone who's into video games or just video game history, that was kind of a pivotal moment because right when this was happening, Nintendo was actually trying to get their NES up and running in the US market. What a twist of fate that you have one of the industry titans just kind of imploding on itself, and then you have the up and newcomer from Japan basically trying to set themselves up right when the West is basically looking at video games going, oh, that's a fad. We don't want to get involved in that. We got burned once.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting what this movie is about and just how it holds up to the other video game documentaries. So again, tune in Saturday while I'll be reviewing The Birds, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Tuesday, Harlan County, USA. And Thursday, me and Zero are going to review Atari Game Over. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Talk to you guys next time. Bye.